Alright guys, so it has been a little while since my last update. I'm honestly unsure where I left off at, but to summarize it, getting this motor in has been difficult just because there's a lot of custom things that I have to get this motor to fit, mainly being the clutch shim. Since the clutch shim basically is pretty thick due to my clutch application, a lot of the things didn't line up, mainly in part. If you look on most clutches, and if you look at most like transmissions or whatnot, you have a slave cylinder. The slave cylinder has basically a feed and a block off, or a bleeder line, a bleeder screw. Just because of how the offset was from the torque tube, your bell housing has little cutouts that allow it to, basically seal up around this, but it has two little indents here that allow these two lines to basically exit from the bell housing. But since my clutch shim was so far out, they came in contact with the actual relief cutout. So what I had to end up doing is I had to make a custom offset piece on the bleeder screw and basically grind it down to end up making it fit. So that was pretty tedious there. Before I progress any further, I wanted to make sure there was no leaks or no anything else like that. So I went ahead and I bled the clutch and everything, which in itself was a challenge because the line and the quick connect did not want to go on at all. And just being that I am, I was pretty much just out here trying to get it connected up, and being there's only so much you can do with one hand down there. So this is from the old one, but it's a quick connect fitting another one that goes in here and you have to press it in. But it's really hard, it does not want to work. So they actually have a drainage spring. There's a spring that goes inside on this end, there's a spring on the other side. And you basically force it together, and then eventually it snaps with a clip inside of here. The main reason why they have those springs on there is so that you don't it's already pre-bled and you don't lose any fluid whenever you install a new one or you take off the old one. In my case, working with F bodies beforehand, there is no such thing as that. It honestly is just an open system. You have a speed bleeder here, and this other system here is just an empty line. There's no spring, none of that. So you have to bleed the old-fashioned way. And honestly, it's not nearly as much of a hassle as it is with the Corvette stuff, because they don't want you to lose fluid. So what I did is I took the old one and I practiced it. I took off this pin here, removed the spring. Anyway, so yeah, I removed that spring on this one and on the clutch line and whatnot. So it basically just snapped together with the safety pin inside of there, and had to bleed it using the Mighty Vac method. There's many terms and many different names to this method, but I just go by the tool, what it's called. To use the Mighty Vac, essentially you suck out some fluid, create a little vacuum, pump the clutch, and it basically bleeds itself and gets out all the air. So that method just worked better for me, just being one person. So next, what I have to end up doing is I need to get the cradle back on the car. I need to finish up with the torque tube bolts, get that back on, and from there, get all the mounts and everything on. So that's what we're going to be working on next. All right, so it's been a little while since my last update of the car, so let's kind of do a little summary of what's been going on. Front suspension and everything is on the car. I don't know if I went over that last. Cradle and everything is back on, motor mounts. The headers are all mocked into place, but I need to remove this one again and get that on. The front accessories are mostly on. The reservoir, I have to pull the power steering pump back off so I can get the reservoir all situated. And yeah, so the other headers is loosely on, but it is through. AC compressor, water pump, all that stuff. All right, I know it has been a minute since my last update. I honestly have no idea where I left off. I ain't gonna lie to you guys, but as you can see now, this whole long block is there. The accessories and stuff like that are on, besides the power steering stuff. Need to get that sorted out. About to put on the intake manifold. The headers and everything are now on and bolted down. Fans, the shroud assembly and stuff like that. I also need to get a push rod for this engine. I need to check push rod length because it is not the same. The heads were milled down. Once that's done, get the rest of the exhaust on, and I guess see what she does. So we will give you guys another update in a little bit. This is not as like step-by-step as I usually do things, so this will probably all be in one video up until the start, I'm assuming, just because I know I have not been doing a great job with giving you guys updates. So yeah. Alright guys, so we have a little bit more progress here. We have the intake mostly on. We measured push rod length. So now that that is done, I need to get push rods for this engine. Figured out a few other miscellaneous stuff that I need to get. That way I can finish bolting everything up. Once I have that, then we can make some more progress on everything. So this is the next little update that I have. I'm exhausted, if you can hear, but essentially I went to Summit, drove all the way there yesterday to get push rods for this engine. Don't exactly know if they're gonna fit. I have two different sizes, and then there's a third one in another place if these don't fit. So I ended up getting those and put on the rockers, put on everything else like that. Had to get some adapters as well for the radiator and the trans lines. So for the trans cooler, also ended up discovering that there was a small crack in the oil pan. So there's JB Weld on there for now temporarily until I get a new pan if it seals. So just kind of knocking out some things real quick. And yeah, so keep you guys updated with everything. Last time that you guys have seen everything, I was able to make the trans lines for the cooler. As you can see, kind of there temporary. I'm gonna order OEM lines, but they don't make a brand new line for this car anymore for the trans cooler. It's just literally this section from right here to the part that goes near the starter, somewhere down there. So it's a little section of hard line and soft line. A lot of people do an AN conversion, which I may end up doing in the future, or just find the OEM line. So as you can see, the rockers and everything are on and torqued down. There's no spark plugs in it, so I'm going to probably spin the motor over a little bit and then see how everything is. So yeah, let me do that real quick. All right. All right, so this is a little update so far. We took a long break from this build. We ended up finding out that the problem why it would not start was we use a multimeter. I use a multimeter instead of going in on each pin and trace the BCM, the ECU. Ended up being the ABS, our EBCM module. Once I got that fixed, then it ended up being 60 ohms. Before it was 128 ohms. So if you know anything about resistors, you know that with 128 ohms, it's not gonna end up doing anything. It didn't cycle through. So once I ended up figuring that out, I ended up getting it to like slightly crank over. So I know the problem isn't there for that. So first off, what we're gonna do is we're gonna cycle through. We're gonna look for oil pressure. Accessory mode on. Key on for this. Turn all this off. And then oil pressure is what we're looking for here. All right. I just heard it, but it doesn't sound like it's running. So this is 340, 381. That is 100 degrees. That is like 100 degrees. Alright guys, so I have been neglecting this whole series for a little while, but a little bit of an update of what's going on. The car runs and drives, but as the clip that I have inserted already previously in this to kind of summarize what's going on, the car has too much oil pressure. That is an issue I never thought I'd ever experience in a build, but it is an issue that is on this. So at least for me, like, that's something I never thought that I would have to deal with in a car, but considering this thing with, originally I had 20W50 in it, VR1, which is what I had around for startup. And then I had like 100 PSI of oil pressure cold and like 95 hot. Then I switched out to 5W30. I still had 85 cold or 90 cold. And then like around the same thing hot. And then I just swapped to 0W20 and I have, I think it's like 85 cold and like 79 hot. So it's still way too much oil pressure. The only thing I'm gonna do now is I put a copo spring inside the oil pump and I'm gonna end up swapping back to a stock style one. But in order to do that on these cars, this dry sump, you have to pull off the whole front accessories and get to it from there. So that's gonna suck. Also have to fix a crack in the oil pan. So I'm gonna have to drop the subframe a little bit like that. And then once I do that, then it's smooth sailing. So that is what I'll be doing now, and hopefully that solves the issue. All right, so let's give you guys a little update on everything. So the car had, I don't know if I filmed it or not, but the car had a ton of oil pressure on it. I inserted a clip earlier. So what it required me to do is swap out the oil spring for the pressure relief. If you look right here, this is the old spring. This is the copo spring. It just gave me way too much oil pressure. So I swapped it out for a standard GM blue spring. In order to do that, I had to end up dropping the subframe out of the car, which you can see in there, it's all dropped out. And I have to pull off this front timing cover, step over here. And I had that removed, pulled it all off, and then I put it all, sealed it all back together last night. Then next, the oil pan also had a leak because it was cracked, which, as you can see right here, I ended up getting the pan re-welded. But me being the person that I am, whenever I went to go get it welded at the shop, they ended up having another oil pan there, dry sump, so I just opted to get that, and I'm probably just gonna sell that pan. It is welded and everything. So yeah, now time to put on the harmonic balancer. We'll start it up, see what the oil pressure is, and then go from there. I don't think I'm gonna put the whole car back together yet, just until that I verify what the oil pressure and stuff like that is.